Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle D'Souza Gill, and I am hosting Dinesh's podcast today. If you are a regular Dinesh D'Souza listener, then you've probably heard me on the podcast here before. Although it has been a little while, I am delighted to be back. I am frequently busy being a mom to my daughter, Marigold. I also support my husband's campaign for U.S. Congress. But most importantly, you can find me on social media so we can stay in touch. Make sure to find me on Facebook, Instagram, True Social, Rumble, X, all the places. I'm at Danielle D'Souza Gill, so make sure to find me on there. But big news for this week, of course, is that Dinesh's new film, Vindicating Trump, hits theaters. So you have to go to the website, vindicatingtrump.com, get your tickets to watch the movie in theaters. I know Dinesh will be talking about the movie every day. I am so excited about the movie, but today we are actually going to dive into some other things. We're going to be talking about polling. What do we think about the polling that we're seeing of Harris versus Trump? And we're also going to be talking about some data that's come out about women's happiness. So this is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
Needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
It is a truth of data science that the results of any model depend on the validity and accuracy of the input. As the maxim goes, garbage in, garbage out. A question uppermost in voters' minds these days is whether or not the presidential tracking polls are trustworthy, or if they are actually just so many useless models. After all, the polls in the 2016 election were completely wrong about Hillary Clinton's lead over Donald Trump, and they grossly miscalculated the amount of support the Democrats actually had. Despite the polling industry's attempts to avoid a repeat of their failure in 2016, polls for the 2020 election were even more inaccurate. Josh Clinton, the chair of the American Association for the Public Opinion Research Task Force on 2020 pre-election polling, conceded in an interview with Pew Research that, quote, despite the polls accurately pointing to a Biden victory, the polling error was the highest in 40 years for the national popular vote and the highest in at least 20 years for state-level estimates of the vote in presidential, senatorial, and gubernatorial contests. The failure of the pollsters is causing anxiety for both the right and the left. Gilad Edelman in The Atlantic opines the fact that Democrats cannot trust that the slim lead Kamala Harris appears to have is actually real. Many of them don't even believe it. He writes, quote, according to the New York Times, in the run-up to Election Day in 2020, Biden led by 10 points in Wisconsin, but won it by less than 1 point. He led Michigan by 8 and won by 3. He led in Pennsylvania by 5 and won by 1. Even though some polls give Harris a slight lead over Trump, her lead is much less than Biden's was in polling in 2020. Edelman, a Harris supporter, writes that, quote, a 2020 size error would mean that Harris is actually down and poised to lose the Electoral College. The fear that Harris's numbers are inflated is warranted because she is running against Donald Trump, whose poll numbers never seem to match his true level of support amongst voters. Keep in mind that the pollsters' historic failure in 2020 was unexpected because the 2018 polls for the midterm elections hit the mark successfully. Josh Clinton states that the difference in accuracy is no doubt something specific to races involving Donald Trump. Clinton explains that, quote, in 2018, the pre-election polls were much more accurate than they were in 2016. He continues to say that the fact that the 2020 pre-election polls were even worse than those in 2016, despite how well the 2018 polls performed, suggests that the problem may have been unique to the candidacy of President Trump himself. And therein lies our problem. No poll that involves Donald Trump is trustworthy. At least that's not what the data tells us. But why is this the case? This week, an article in The Hill quoted an anonymous Democratic senator who suggested that polling for President Trump is inaccurate because people are embarrassed to admit their support for him. For example, they may feel like they are in fear for their job, of losing friends, and so on. And so they don't tell people this, and they may not tell a pollster that they're voting for Donald Trump, but they actually are. This seems an implausible excuse, though, because evidence to the contrary abounds. Consider the crowds that flock to Trump rallies to show their support, as well as the unwillingness of people to say they are supporting Kamala Harris in televised man-on-the-street interviews. Last week on CBS, for example, reporter Adriana Diaz spoke with diners in 3 counties in the battleground states of Nevada, and to her surprise, she was only able to find one Harris supporter. People are really excited about Trump, Diaz lamented. In states such as Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, where Hispanics make up more than 1/3 of the population, Trump's numbers are up because Kamala Harris is, quote, underperforming with the Hispanic community. ABC reported that the Harris has only a 17% lead. The Harris lead is actually not that big over Trump with Hispanics, while Biden's margin was 33% and Hillary Clinton led Trump by 40%. I know that's crazy, but Democrats actually need that big of a lead with groups like Hispanics because otherwise they're really losing numbers there. So Democrats acknowledge that these numbers were grossly inflated. And so does that mean that Kamala is actually losing to Donald Trump amongst Hispanics? Well, it might be, or at least she's losing enough where it's going to really hurt her. Another disappointment in the polls for the Harris-Walz ticket happened last week when the Teamsters Union published its polling results last Wednesday, along with the announcement that the powerful 12-10-year-old union would not be endorsing any candidate for the 2024 presidential election. The only other time the Teamsters have not endorsed a candidate, or for that matter, failed to support the Democrat running for president, was in 1996 when the trade union declined to endorse Bill Clinton's re-election. Though union bosses overwhelmingly support Harris, the workers support Trump. The Teamsters presidential poll, based on a voting window that ran from July 24th to September 15th, shows rank-and-file Teamsters voted 59.6% for the union to endorse President Trump, while Vice President Harris only garnered 34%. Surprisingly for Democrats, Biden dropping out of the race seems to have caused more Teamsters to support President Trump. An earlier straw poll had Biden ahead of Trump among the rank-and-file Teamsters, with 46% voting for Biden and Trump garnering only 36.3%. According to a recent Politico article, the Trump campaign is not surprised by the Teamsters poll. Trump spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said, quote, "While the Teamsters executive board is making no formal endorsement, the hardworking members of the Teamsters have been loud and clear. They want President Trump back in the White House. These hardworking men and women are the backbone of America, and President Trump will strongly stand for them when he's back in the White House." So, what are we to make of the polls? Is Trump really ahead? Or have the pollsters taken to heart the catastrophic failures of the 2016 and 2020 election cycles? Is Harris really ahead by 2 to 7 points nationally, as today's round of presidential polls might report? Well, there is no way to be sure. Even the mainstream media is being forced to admit that voters remember the years of Trump's presidency fondly. And to be honest, right now, even if the economy is improving, most Americans don't feel like it is. They still feel like their pocketbooks are being hit. They still feel like inflation is up, and they still feel like their life was better under Trump's presidency than it has been under the Biden-Harris administration. The media is being forced to admit that voters actually don't want to see a repeat of the Biden presidency. They don't want to see Harris as a continuation of the Biden presidency. And that's why Harris is actually trying to campaign on change and make it seem like she's actually running as someone who's looking forward, looking to the future. But in reality, she's actually in office right now. A recent New York Times article reports that voters in the Sun Belt say that President Trump, quote, improved their lives when he was president. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is an unknown quantity. Her unwillingness to answer any questions about her plans to fix the failing economy, our broken immigration policy, or runaway inflation has left voters unwilling to support her bid for the White House. Add to that the fact that the very problems she proposes to fix happened while she was vice president. And you have to wonder why anyone would support her candidacy if they actually are looking for a change. Even the latest polls from the New York Times and Siena College show Trump and Harris in a dead heat. Shockingly, the poll shows President Trump has gained a lead in Arizona and remains ahead in Georgia, two states Biden won in 2020. Likewise, in North Carolina, a state which has not voted for a Democrat since 2008, the New York Times Siena College poll shows Harris trailing Trump by a slim margin. If even the New York Times is forced to admit that Harris is trailing Trump, it is certainly possible that Trump is actually ahead by a healthy margin. Now, I think as Republicans, we may feel a little bit demoralized because we feel like during the RNC, when Trump was running against Biden, it was right after his assassination attempt, the first one at least, like we were so ahead of Biden. We were just going to blow him out of the water in the votes, and we were just so ahead. And I think that that's true. We were so ahead, but I think we are still ahead. But the Democrats are trying to convince people that Kamala has taken off, that she is extremely popular, extremely likable, when in reality, that may not actually be the case if we read into these polls more deeply. While there are many indicators encouraging supporters of President Trump to take heart and allow a cautious optimism to color their reading of the polls, the only poll that truly matters will happen on November 5th when the nation votes. After surviving unrelenting media attacks, the out-of-control lawfare, as well as not one but two assassination attempts on President Trump's life, only a fool would discount President Trump's chances to win re-election. His willingness to fight for our interests is truly inspiring.
How would you define your relationship with sleep? Are there challenges, trouble falling asleep or staying asleep? Have you tried other sleep supplements but feel like nothing has worked? As we age, sleep becomes even more difficult to accomplish. Debbie and I are always looking for ways of not only getting more sleep, but staying asleep. So how do we accomplish this? Well, 3 words: Beam's Dream Powder. It's a science-backed, healthy hot cocoa for sleep. This product has single-handedly changed the way we sleep for the better. My listeners and viewers get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, the science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. My favorite flavor, chocolate peanut butter. Debbie's brownie batter. Beam contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, epigenin, and melatonin to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, text Beam to 717-767. That's text the word BEAM, B-E-A-M, to 717-767. You get up to 40% off. Better sleep has never tasted better. Don't let sleep evade you like it has me and Debbie. Text BEAM to 717-767. That's BEAM to 717-767 for up to 40% off. Look at these massive tax hikes being proposed by Harris, an almost 40% top income tax rate, 7% increase to the corporate tax, a capital gains tax on unrealized gains, and that her proposals can add almost $2 trillion to a current $2 trillion deficit. Wow. You might be thinking it's time to make more of your savings tax sheltered and inflation sheltered. Well, this is where the people at Birch Gold Group can help you. Birch Gold can assist you in converting an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. And the best news, you don't pay a penny out of pocket. Just text the word Dinesh to 989898. You'll get a free information kit on gold, no obligation, just information on fortifying your savings before the crazy really hits. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers like me and Debbie, you should contact Birch Gold too. Text Dinesh to the number 989898 for your free information kit today. I got a deal for you from Balance of Nature. Hold off on purchasing your first order from Balance of Nature because I've got some information you need to hear. If you go to balanceofnature.com to buy their popular fruits and veggies in a capsule, these are the fruit and veggie supplements, you'll see a discount offer up there. It pops up, it says 20% off, 25% off your first order, something like that. Don't click that. Why? Because if you use my code, you'll get 35% off your first order, plus free shipping. So the special code is the word America. Use that code America and save big. Here's another bonus. Balance of Nature has a risk-free money-back guarantee. So go ahead, find out for yourself what I already know. There's no other product out there like Balance of Nature when it comes to fruit and veggie supplements. When you order online or call them direct, you got to use promo code America. You get the special offer, 35% off and free shipping. Here's the number to call, 800-246-8751. Once again, it's 800-246-8751. Or go to balanceofnature.com. When you use discount code America, you get 35% off and free shipping.
I am delighted to welcome to the podcast Mitchell Brown. He is a pollster and director of political strategy at Signal. Mitchell, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So Mitchell, I thought I could start by asking you a little bit about how you kind of got into this. How did you find yourself, in politics and following the news and polls so closely?
Yeah, so it's kind of a roundabout way. I was an Army guy prior to getting into politics, and then found myself working at the White House for Trump in 2019. So worked for him in 2019, 2020, and then I went and worked on the campaign in Wisconsin in 2020 and started to really dive deep into the polling there, and it really started to interest me. And so I love knowing how people think and how it varies around the country, and then even in like little individual communities within a state. It just really appealed to me. And it's something that, again, is often so wrong. When people see public polling, I can tell people it's mostly not going to be right. Because it's normally put out for a certain reason, or there's certain players at stake. And so I realized the value of having actionable intelligence that campaigns can go use. And so it kind of just stuck out and appealed to me. And so once we left the Trump administration, I transitioned to this.
Okay, cool. Well, tell me a little bit about 2020 versus 2016 versus now. How do you compare kind of the reliability of the polls? Are different methods being used for the polls? How do you just kind of broadly look at how the polls look at those couple elections?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, the big seismic shift that shook up everyone was 2016 polling. Obviously, no one was right there. My polling firm was Trump's pollster in 2020. And a lot of it, again, is just understanding how to get people to respond to you. Again, it's no longer 2004 where people pick up landlines. And again, it's understanding that you don't want to weight samples. A lot of the public polling you see, or again, just polling that's a little spotty, kind of a methodology they use is, say you are polling Wisconsin and it says you need, for it to be demographically accurate throughout the whole sample, you need 49 women age 18 to 35 to respond to your poll. Mm-hmm. A lot of polling companies and a lot of polling outlets that are, especially the ones you see publicly, will only collect 31 responses from that group. They can't get them to reach, and they will weight that sample to the number that it should be. Again, so obviously you start to put your fingers on the scale a little bit of what that could look like. The other issue, too, that you have with that is understanding how these people respond. If you're contacting a guy that's 65 plus in Wisconsin, he's not going to respond to a text or to an online poll. You are better off with that, again, live calling. But when it comes to reaching people in Milwaukee or in Atlanta or in Philadelphia, you have to find different modalities. And so we've kind of been, we're one of the first pioneers in that. We kind of only exclusively deal in contacting people via text, SMS, or online panel. We mix in live calls, but again, that's just not where the population's moving to. So you got to go find the people to get the accurate responses. The other issue that you see a lot of times with these public polling is I can go make a poll, say 4 different things very easily. So again, say we want to use Pennsylvania, for example. If I make a sample 1 or 2% more female, that is going to change the ballot. If I make a little more high income earning, that is going to change the ballot. Again, if I bring, it's very hard for people to pick up and tell. A lot of these polls don't come with the crosstabs or demographic breakdown, or also people aren't experts. It's not their job to go figure out exactly what that percentage should be. But I can go through and be like, okay, that's why this poll is showing Trump up 5 in a place where he really won't be, or why it says he's down 5. And I know that's not true either. So it's, again, taking things with a grain of salt. A lot of that is environmentally correct or directionally, so you can get the sentiment of what's going on. But again, there's always a reason why public polling is public. It's meant to drive a narrative, or it's released by people who paid for it because they want a certain thing. They want to show their candidate down to increase fundraising numbers, or they want to show their candidate up to decrease enthusiasm on the other side. There's a bunch of things at play there.
Yeah, definitely people read into them a lot. And I guess one thing I wonder too is how much, like you said, does it influence if you increased women by 1% or increase this by percent? How much does that influence it as far as turnout? I mean, we don't really know exactly who all is going to be voting always. Do you find that, do the numbers move a lot in a lot of these swing places depending on those things because they are so tight?
Yeah, again, if you're predicting turnout, again, say like we're using Pennsylvania for an example, if you overestimate or underestimate Philadelphia's turnout, again, that is drastically changing what that top line number on the ballot is. Something very small. So you have to be pretty accurate and, again, go back pretty historically to figure out what that turnout will be. And then again, just to make sure that it's directly representative of what you believe will be the turnout on that election day. But most of the campaigns, their internal polling is pretty spot on. So it's a better judgment than looking at the public polling as looking to where the ad dollars are going by the campaigns, because you can tell that's driven by their internal polling. That's telling them, okay, if you're Harris, we're backing out of Arizona and Nevada because that's not showing us good. They might be seeing little glimpses of hope in North Carolina and Georgia, so they're increasing their spending there. And same thing you can see with the Trump team, where they're investing. Like they pulled resources from New Hampshire because the numbers are telling them that New Hampshire is not in play.
Okay. Wow. How are things looking in Pennsylvania? I know that's kind of seems like a key, or a lot of people say it's the key, to the election. So maybe if you could zero in a bit on Pennsylvania, what is Harris's strategy? What are they doing? What's the Trump team doing? How do you kind of see that playing out?
Yeah. Again, those people are right. All roads do lead to Pennsylvania, because I think Trump has North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada locked up. Michigan is going to go to Harris. Wisconsin is slightly leaning Harris, but winnable. Michigan, I don't believe is. Pennsylvania, I want to talk about the two strategies. For Harris, it's how do you get 2% of that Biden vote that normally wouldn't go to you? And what I mean by that is Joe Biden's kind of whole shtick was he was the third senator from Pennsylvania. That was what he always went out and said.
Brenton Joe.
Exactly. And so obviously she's going to do well to match what he could do in Philadelphia and in Eastern Pennsylvania. But where she struggles and where that fall off is from Biden to Harris is when you go out west to those suburbs there. Again, her shtick doesn't play as well there. It's not resonating. Joe can play that comment, especially people forget that Joe, even in 2020, was more lucid, obviously, than he is now. So he could still go put on that common man shtick and talk to those people in some of those Western Pennsylvania towns. That is like Harris's weakness and why they view Pennsylvania as enough, because Biden essentially maxed out the black turnout and the black vote in Philadelphia. So Harris is going to have that. It's just, can she match it in those other suburban counties? I don't think she can. For Trump, it's really not that much of a different game plan than 2020. If he hits the 2020 numbers that he got, he would win Pennsylvania this time. He's maxing out that group. There's a couple areas where he's trying to win 2 to 3% more. So if you saw like Luzerne County is a county that recently flipped in voter registration and early voting. It's these exurb counties that were trending a little bit bluer. They're not fully blue, but again, it's not even the suburban layers in Philadelphia area. It's the exurbs there.
Yeah. Okay. So do you think Kamala is going to be using Tim Walz to reach those people? Was that a big strategy for choosing him? It seems like his goal was maybe to be used a bit more in the Midwest, but is she going to maybe be trying to use him for that? And then also, why do you think she didn't maybe consider Josh Shapiro or someone who has more popularity in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, she would she would have secured herself the presidency if she chose Shapiro. As you see, I think his favorability is up to 58, 59% in that state. And every time I poll it, again, you have about 25% of Republicans that actually like Josh Shapiro. I think we know why she didn't choose him. I mean, there's a part of her base that will not allow a Jewish man to be on the ticket. They would have protested it and rioted for that. And she kowtowed to that pressure. I think Walz is a better option for her in Pennsylvania specifically. But again, just because you're from the Midwest doesn't mean that it resonates with people.
Okay.
I think he's a much better play in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is very similar to Minnesota and the people behave. Pennsylvania's not. Pennsylvania and Ohio are similar in a sense. It's just not the same. So yes, it is a guy from the Midwest coming in there, and that can help a little bit, but it's not the same. And it would be better suited if she just had Shapiro campaigning for her more so than Walz, I think.
Okay. How do you compare maybe JD Vance and Tim Walz and how they're doing? Maybe focusing on Midwest, JD Vance being from Ohio, Tim Walz being from Minnesota. How do you think I think you kind of already said that Michigan is leaning Harris, but do you think the vice presidents are playing a big role? Are they going to move any people on the polling? I know when I looked at some of the numbers, I think Trump was maybe outperforming in Ohio anyways. So I don't know if that really moves the needle a lot, but what are your thoughts on like the VPs influencing the polls?
Yeah, when it comes to Trump, I mean, there's really almost no movement there. Again, he's a unique figure where no matter what's going on around him, it doesn't really change that. Because you got to remember too, JD didn't overwhelmingly win in Ohio. That was pretty close. And you got to think when you're talking about JD, like who does he appeal to? It's people that are already have made that turn to supporting Trump. Again, that rural, forgotten America, union type worker. Trump is already appealing to them. So JD, in that sense, doesn't really add much. He's just a boost of that fact. Where, again, a lot of people were saying that someone of a different cut would have been able to help in that eastern part of Pennsylvania, and that less rural part would have put North Carolina out of play and Georgia out of play. I think he was more of an ideological pick for Trump, like to name his successor or the successor of that movement, more so than an electoral pick, because I think there's 3 or 4 options that probably would have helped you a little bit more with that suburban moderate voter than JD.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe you can respond a little bit to, I know you were mentioning some polls are kind of only used for fundraising and stuff. Can you respond a bit to the internet poll showing Ted Cruz was, I think, down a point in the Senate race in Texas against Colin Allred? I read it was an internet poll. I think Colin Allred is fundraising off of it, but it was basically one of the first polls, I think, that showed that Allred was ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, Ted Cruz isn't losing that Senate race. He also, again, was in a close Senate race last time. It's going to be close again. Ted Cruz has his issues where he won't overperform like some other people on the top of the ticket. It's not an overall trend in Texas to be going bluer. That's not the case. Allred's a decent candidate. He presents well. He speaks well. His record's not great, but other than that, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, we saw this where people said that Beto could beat Ted. That's a poll that is specifically done for fundraising. Like when you show we are in striking distance, we can beat Ted. That makes people want to spend their dollars. And you could see where those online polls are sent. It's mostly for out of state fundraising. Again, someone like Allred, he relies on that out of state money to win. Again, that's mostly the Dem playbook for most of these states. If you go look at those Georgia elections when Warnock had over $100 million and you go look at where it came from, very little was from the state of Georgia. Again, you even had the California public school systems donating money, like the University of California to Warnock.
How is that possible where these institutions are doing that?
It's a good question.
You're like, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely, I think, is now kind of come around to bite us. Again, obviously, it was a kind of a conservative issue to put forth the donor base like this, and Citizens United was, again, a more of a conservative movement to get corporations to be viewed as citizens so they can donate. But now, I mean, we're on a drastic underspend. So if you go look, there's only one Senate race that we are outspending the Dems in, and that is Ohio. But we are at I believe, a 3-to-1 disadvantage in Wisconsin, 2.5-to-1 in Pennsylvania. But we did just make a large buy for like $60 million today, I believe, and I think it's 1.5 or 1, or 1.5 or 2 in Arizona, and the same thing in Nevada. It's when you're getting outspent double. One, you have to have terrific candidates, and two, you just have to be very accurate with things. Because again, 2-to-1 can be overcome, but once you hit that 3 and 4-to-1, you can't overcome that regardless of how strong a candidate is.
Yeah. So why is it that our focus on Ohio, you said, is so much stronger, but in other places it's not as much? Is Ohio just like a really top priority win?
Well, when you think of all the other states, like Trump is going to win by double digits in Ohio. He's not going to win any of these other Senate race states by double digits except Montana, but that's pretty much already in the bag for Republicans there. Like Ohio is one, they are like, hey, how much can we ride these coattails? Because I mean, at least to Sherrod Brown's credit, like he is very popular in that state. And again, he's kind of like that Josh Shapiro type where a lot of Republicans do like Sherrod Brown. So it's that they're spending money to ride these coattails. If they think, hey, if we can get Trump to almost winning by 15, that means Moreno can win by 2, is kind of the hope. So they're really pouring money there to try to lock that seat in. When the rest are, it's tough because no one is going to no one is going to do as well as Trump on the ticket. So that means that if we were going to win in Arizona, Nevada, Trump needs to win by 3 or 4 for us to inch out a win in those states. Same in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and in Michigan.
Okay. So how do we get a couple people just looking to future who are appealing to more people, like maybe a Republican version of Josh Shapiro or Sherrod Brown, where it's like, oh no, that person is pulling in this percent of independents or other people as well? Because if we are being outspent, it seems like, I don't know, some people talk about the candidates. Is it that, or is it more just like, no, this is just the way this area is?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to have unique candidates. Again, like a Brian Kemp in Georgia is nearing 60% approval. Glenn Youngkin in Virginia is nearing 60% approval in states that aren't what they used to be. So it's finding people like that because, again, these donations come from the business community. So if you're just going out there and winning a Republican primary by being the most to the right, while again, obviously, like Republicans want someone who's ideologically strong and shows those values, you have to do it in a well-kept package that doesn't turn off a moderate voter. Again, because there's no point in just winning a primary just to lose a general. So again, the push should be to find the most conservative person who can win a general. Now, obviously, if you're in a deep red state, that's a different story. You don't have to worry about that. If like we're running for who's going to be the next governor of Tennessee, that doesn't matter. But again, in North Carolina,
swing place.
Yeah, in North Carolina, we have an example of that whole rest of the ticket might lose because of that gubernatorial battle. And when that didn't have to be the case.
Do you see anything being influenced by illegals in terms of remaking the map? I mean, if you're saying like, oh, this small number of changes really influences, whether this person wins or that person wins. I mean, in the long term, if we have so many people come into the country, assuming some of these people end up staying here, some of these people may end up becoming citizens, how does that influence the numbers maybe in places near the border?
Well, the interesting thing, though, is when you look at like a trend line by 2030, what the new proportionment of states is going to be in their vote allocation towards electoral college. California is going to lose seats again, 3 or 4. Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Idaho are states that are going to gain. So it's not so much of that apportionment. Like again, California again lost congressional seats despite being the most rampant state for illegal migrants to reside in.
Okay.
Again, the worry is just the states that don't have checks on who can vote. Again, we see it in the voter rolls and other places. But again, that's also the key is figuring out where people are going. I mean, we've seen all those stories about where migrants are being shipped to, bused to, or where these NGOs that are backed by the State Department are sending people in the country. And it's more so just, again, making sure that's not the case, because we can see it in other states where I was a poll observer in Wisconsin during that election, and I was in Milwaukee, Hispanic speaking community basically there. And at this polling station, you could just go in with a student ID and a phone bill that has an address, and that's enough for you to vote. And no one was speaking English there. Wow. And I remember just talking to the RNC at the time, and I was like, hey, like, this can't be right. And like, that is Wisconsin state election law. So it really is how much that stuff matters. And if you see out of those important states, Georgia's the only one that's passed anything fruitful since 2020. And again, it's another tack on to Brian Kemp's leadership as governor there, is he's, again, actually put in new voting laws that are going to secure the elections there. So it's really focusing on that, because what can we do at this point with the Californias of the world?
We don't control Wisconsin. So then it's like, how do you fix that? It is a swing state, but we almost have to win it first in order to fix it to win it again. But wow. Well, thank you so much, Mitchell, for your thoughts. I really appreciate it. There's a lot to really think about these next couple months. But the most important thing is, of course, for people to put their thoughts into action by voting. So,
yeah, and thank you for having me. It was a good time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Once again, MyPillow has been canceled by another box store, so they're passing an incredible offer exclusively to my viewers and listeners. The standard MyPillow retails for $49.98, and for a limited time, you can have one for only $14.98. That's right. Don't miss out on this amazing deal while supplies last. Order now using promo code Dinesh, or you can call 800-876-0227. But that's not all. There's other deals you need to know about. Get a 4-piece towel set for just $25. A brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98. The famous MyPillow bed sheets as low as $25, and so much more. To get these discounts on all the MyPillow products, including the standard size MyPillow, just $14.98. Limited, by the way, to 10 per order. Go to mypillow.com. Don't forget to use the promo code DINESH Dinesh. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance? Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing ShareRight. It's healthcare done the right way. At ShareRight, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. Forget about paying excessive premiums. With ShareRight, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. So think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just savings. ShareRight ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With ShareRight, your healthcare is their top priority. Empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh to learn more. See how much you can save. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh. That's shareright.org/Dinesh for healthcare done the right way.
What is happiness? You can ask 100 people that question and you'll get almost as many answers. The prevailing belief is that happiness is defined on subjective terms alone. What makes you happy might not make me happy, and vice versa. Sure, it makes sense in a narrow, superficial way. If we're talking about things like ice cream flavors or movie genres, maybe you like a certain one, someone else likes something else. But in the classical sense of the word happiness, getting what you want at the local ice cream shop is pleasure or enjoyment, but not necessarily a deep sense of happiness. The true meaning of the word happiness is more complex. It's about making the right choices. You're happy when, as philosopher Peter Kreeft would say, your life is well happed or well lived. You're happy when you can look back on your life with the assurance that the choices you made were in accordance with the good, with what is right, and that leads to happiness. The conundrum starts when what's right and what's easy or convenient or pleasing, maybe like the ice cream flavor, aren't always the same things. Being good can be very hard, especially when happiness comes later. The fact that goodness presents us with difficult choices is a reality our culture is uncomfortable with facing. That's why our society works to confuse the good with the easy, the comfortable, the pleasing, the ice cream. At the same time, our literary canon is full of stories of people who desired one thing, but when they attained it, they found not happiness, but misery. One such example is the story of King Midas, who was cursed with the ability to turn everything and everyone into gold. You may have heard this story. If we really think about the concept of happiness, we know that there can be a huge gulf between what we want and what makes us happy. One group that is grappling with this question in society today are women, and especially women who are actually college educated. After decades of working towards the goal of improving the lot of women in the workplace, it seems they have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. Professional women have gone from underrepresentation to overrepresentation, with more women graduating from college than men, in terms of those who have earned at least one four-year college degree. According to Pew Research, women have not only surpassed men in attaining this credential by slowly outpacing men, recent years have actually shown that men are beginning to fall off in number and abandon college for other avenues, meaning that the gender gap between those who have degrees and those who don't is only going to increase in favor of women. Gender equality among degree holders is no longer some lofty goal to be attained at some future date. It's a reality that was achieved in our past at the close of the 1990s and during the early 2000s. We've gone from equality, or at least that's what feminists were saying they wanted for women, equality, to female dominance, which, according to the current woke paradigm, is still not enough. Men, masculinity, and maleness are widely considered to be blights on humanity. They are not to be suppressed, but eradicated, looked down on. So don't expect the media to raise alarm over the situation I'm telling you about, no matter who it harms. It turns out that it's women who are actually being harmed the most by this development. Many women find that it's on them to work full-time and take care of the kids. This may sound like a dream, but it's actually a lot to fall on one person. That's because now women, they're far more selective than men when it comes to finding a mate. We're seeing that one of the big determining factors for attractiveness among women is a man's salary. And as you know, salary can be impacted by education. And so in one experiment, researchers combined salary amounts with images of men and women, which were then rated according to attractiveness. The results were startling, maybe. It turns out that ratings of attractiveness were around 1,000 times more sensitive to salary for females rating males. So women were saying, hey, I'm kind of interested in this guy who's more successful, compared to males rating females. Males did not care at all if the woman was more successful. They were not more attracted to this woman. This experiment also tracked the body mass index, which is a metric of physical fitness of the raters as well as their ages. Interestingly, the women rating males showed the same preferences for high-earning male, no matter his age and even his body type. On the other hand, what men prefer in a potential mate are the features that indicate youth and high fertility. Two things you have less of as you age. So for college-educated males, women who put off marriage to earn a degree are already at a disadvantage to younger women as far as being chosen as a mate. And this is compared to women who do not attend college. Those women are still seen as very desirable. But there's another exacerbating factor here. According to the Survey Center on American Life, the more educated you are as a female, the less willing you are to date or marry a male who isn't as educated as you are. This is because a lot of women want someone who is maybe just as smart or smarter than they are. The survey shows that among women with college degrees, 54% would not consider a man who did not attend college, whereas only 12% of women who lack a degree said they cared as much about the education level of a potential mate. As a result, college-educated women are putting themselves in the position where they will have actually a more difficult time getting married. It will be harder for them to find someone because of the statistics I just said. So as economist John Berger discovered in his book Datanomics, the ratio of educated women to men can be as many as 3 to 2. In other words, for millions of these women, there is no potential mate. That's why many women feel like they're in the situation, because that is actually the situation. That is the facts. It gets worse. Educated women are also much more likely to shun mates who are Trump supporters, Republicans, or very religious men. The only area where educated women are more tolerant than uneducated women is whether or not the man considers himself a feminist. Only 25% of educated women are turned off by male feminists. 47% of uneducated women say a man who is a feminist is a deal breaker. Well, so much for the idea that college would make women better off. On top of that, educated women are also more selective when it comes to height. Only 48% of uneducated women dismiss men who are much shorter, while 64% of educated women hold men to a high standard, no pun intended. So at this point, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because I think women are told, oh, hey, it's great to be in this situation, spend all of your young years just, working and all of this, and then you're going to find this guy who's just, on a pedestal. He's going to be amazing. He's going to be smart. He's going to be all these things. Well, that is actually extremely difficult to find. And not to mention those guys, they actually want women who are maybe not necessarily the same as they are in terms of the education background. So at this point, the prospects become smaller. The height criteria alone already puts most women at a huge disadvantage who have that standard. On average, women prefer a man who is at least 5'11", which for American males is already in the 73rd percentile. This means that at the outset, women in this group only consider about 27% of men dateable. Add all the other factors like the education, the political preferences, and it's no wonder women, especially these very kind of high standards, educated women, why they are not getting married. They consider dating anyone who is not, top earner, top height, top all these things, as that would be settling. Obviously, this is crazy, but I will just continue. This brings us to a pivotal question. Is equality of outcome necessary for happiness? Well, let's look at one more piece of data, even if this is just anecdotal. Sue Ellen Browder is a former writer for the popular women's magazine, Cosmopolitan. You may have heard of it. In 2020, after a lifetime of writing, which she admits was pure propaganda, she has what we in the happiness evaluation business calls regret. This is the opposite of happiness. Regret is a hallmark of unhappiness. Browder considered it her job to sell ideas using the same techniques of influence that advertisers use to sell lipstick and other things. In her case, the goal was to sell the idea of self-fulfillment for the single woman, an idea which Browder herself did not believe in. Browder wrote salacious stories about sex, promiscuity, the workplace, women, being the girl boss. She typically had this kind of goal with this specific intent of trying to make these things that are morally degenerate in the magazine seem more commonplace, seem more cool. All the while, Browder herself was living at home. She was married with kids. Even though she wasn't living the life she was selling, she still managed to get caught up in this propaganda. So when she was pregnant with her third child, shortly after the ruling on Roe v. Wade, she went with her husband to the hospital and had an abortion. The experience left her scarred for the rest of her life, saying, quote, "I did not realize what a traumatic experience that would be later in my life, how much that would haunt me." Browder is also haunted by the fact that she cooperated in the building of, quote, an evil empire, and the fact that she, quote, betrayed the truth. All sentiments that communicate that her life at the magazine, at least, was not conducive to happiness, but to misery. Her misery and the misery of entire generations of women who have listened to Cosmo or read it, that's the problem with propaganda. It has the ability to make us believe that certain things are priorities, certain things will make us happy. When in reality, if you dig into the details and see where does that leave you years from now, actually the result is unhappiness. It's not that getting a degree for women is a bad thing. I absolutely love learning. I went to college. It's that too many people are thinking, especially women, that that is their path to happiness, that it's going to be all about basically being like a man to be happy. When in reality, men and women are very different, and what leads them to find a good mate, what leads them to find the right person is actually a different path. But anyways, in Cosmo, these women were being led down this lonely path of misery, false promises of happiness and fulfillment. And in reality, she was left saying, hey, I'm actually not that happy. If they had truly understood in their own hearts what really constitutes a happy life, she even says she would have done something different. Well, that wraps up today's show. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to find me on social media. I'm at Danielle D'Souza Gill on all the platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, Truth Social, all the spots you'll find on my Facebook page. I'm posting 20 times a day, so take that with a grain of salt if you find me on there. And make sure to get your tickets to the new movie, Vindicating Trump. It is explosive. It is full of Trump footage. Go to vindicatingtrump.com. Get your movie tickets today, and you will see Dinesh back here tomorrow. MAGA.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and salemnow.com.